Hi, and welcome everybody to Leadbetter Live. We're delighted today to be joined by Dr. Robert Winters. Dr. Bob, nice to have you back with us again. We've done a couple of these now, and we have a great title today that I know you've been pushing me for and been passionate about, of developing a tournament mindset now that golf's back on the cards for many golfers. So welcome and thanks for making time.
Well, it's great to be with you, Stuart. So I understand over in the UK, golf is starting to open up today. We're opening up a lot more here in the United States. So let's get to it, because this is going to be a very important topic, developing a tournament mindset. And this isn't just about playing in tournaments. It's really mostly about developing a comfortable mindset, being comfortable with going out and playing for score, playing for some criterion measure. So that's going to be really what it's going to be. I think players, coaches, parents, of junior players, I think everybody's going to get a lot out of some of the things we're going to offer today.
No, fantastic. For all the viewers out there are 3 handouts with the webinar today. Feel free to have a look through them. We have a platform of education, university.leadbetter.com. There's some discount codes in there for you and some information. And at the end of this session, Dr. Bob has kindly agreed to share with you all some nice snippets of information. So look out for that in your inboxes along the way. And one last point. We want to make this as interactive as possible, both between Dr. Bob and myself and you guys. So feel free to send some questions in that you may have around developing a tournament mindset, or something that's on your mind that you'd love to get some help with from the doctor himself. So, Doc, you're more commonly known as the confidence doctor. You spend your life with players of all different abilities and, around the world, and you see all different players, whether they're really kind of high profile top flight pros or people starting out and developing in their golfing career. But you must see, or would you say there's a difference really between recreational golf or going out for fun or relaxing and the competitive side of the game?
Oh, there's definitely a difference. And if we go back into the history of golf, I mean, a couple of the greatest of the greats. Bobby Jones once said, you have recreational golf and you have tournament golf. And these two are as different as winter and summer. Even Ben Hogan said recreational golf and tournament golf are about as different as tennis and ice hockey. And so really what they were talking about is, when we start talking about playing recreational golf, the word recreation means I go out and I play for my personal enjoyment. And I think that's really why we actually get into the game. We enjoy the game. We enjoy hitting this little white golf ball around the golf course. We like the challenge. We like being with others. We just like, being outdoors. It's a wonderful sport, and it's the greatest game, that man's ever invented. But the first thing most people ask when we start to talk about tournaments, they go, wow, do you really like to play in tournaments? And what's a paradox is that you have people who are very, very good players, but sometimes they don't really enjoy the competition. They don't really like tournament golf. So when someone comes to you after a round of golf, hardly anyone comes up to Stuart Clayton and says, hey, Stuart, did you really enjoy yourself on every shot out there today? Did you, stay emotionally composed on every shot? They don't ask that. And the first thing they ask you is what?
What did you shoot today?
What did you shoot? And so that's the difference between recreational golf and tournament golf. In tournament golf, you have this criterion, old man par. It is a standard by which we judge ourselves. And let's talk about that par, that measure of par. Par is a measure, and it's an indicator of what an expert player, not just a professional, but an expert player would actually be judged on, his ability to get around that particular golf course, that yardage, that hole, in a particular amount of strokes, okay? So par is some level. So you have a handicap system when we talk about scratch, meaning, okay, that person would probably shoot par all the time. But the handicap system is based on trying to make some equitable basis of comparing yourself to less talented or more talented people. So we have some people who are a +3 handicap versus some people who are at 23. So we have different flights in tournaments. But the big thing about playing tournament golf is it's for score. There's a consequence and there's an evaluation. So these are the things that sort of get in people's way. When we start talking about developing a tournament mindset, what I'm trying to get people to understand is whatever talent level that you're at, whatever your abilities are, can you get the most out of your game? And to quote Bobby Jones, the secret to golf is to take 3 strokes and turn it into 2. So we're always trying to make the smallest number that we possibly can. But when I start thinking about tournament golf versus recreational golf, in the people that I've seen over these many decades, and I've been doing this, as you know, I've been one of sort of the pioneers of sports psychology, golf psychology. I've studied some of the very best people in the world. We've done a lot of stuff together. Bob Rotella, Linda Bunker, people like that. The point being is that when we start talking about tournaments, we have people who are very competitive. They love to play in tournaments, Stuart. They just love it. And you know those people. They're always, wanting to play you. Let's play for something. Let's play for a $5 Nats, or let's just play. And they're competitive at everything. Whether they're playing Yahtzee, whether they're playing backgammon, checkers, they're very competitive people. They just love to play in competition. They love to play in tournaments. And that's one person, that I work with. And they're very competitive. They're, hard, driving, high achievers. They aspire to be as good as they want. And part of it is kind of an ego thing. They like to compete against other players. They want to beat other players. So they're sort of comparing themselves, me versus you, sort of this direct, comparison. They're looking around the tee box, who's the best player here? And it's sort of like when we're kids, who's the fastest? Who can jump the highest? Who can throw a ball the furthest? So that's one type of competitor that we have. So we talk about these tournament players. And we have other people who are extremely talented, but they're a little bit more cautious about playing in tournaments because tournaments create some type of threat to their golf esteem, to their ego, perhaps to their reputation. They don't want to post a bad score. Plus, they're not so mano a mano, me versus you. They just really want to play more for the mastery of the game. So you have ego orientation on one side, and then you have mastery orientation on another side. And then you have a lot of people who are in between. I don't know, you are an established player. You played for years, strong competitive background. What type of a player, were you? Did you love, to play in tournaments?
Yeah, it's a strange one for me. I mean, I turned pro when quite young, when I was 18, had aspirations of the European tour, but, realized at a certain point that probably wasn't going to pan out. Unfortunately, got involved in coaching and golf's been great to me. But looking back at playing, I was always a quiet kid, but a dogged competitor, really. I loved the competition, but I did it in a very quiet, kind of understated way, a little bit my personality. And the worst thing that anybody could ever say to me is you can't do that, because that motivates me then to prove them wrong. So it's, if they want me to do something, tell me I can't do it. But yeah, I think definitely for me, I'm definitely, and I always have been a very much a what if type of character. So I think I'm very sensitive to the threat. And if I look back at my playing days, and if I was close to the lead or a couple of shots lead, knowing I was going into the last couple of holes, I would become quite defensive. I would almost kind of sacrifice my plan. And obviously to be in the lead, I'm playing well. So it's a good position to be in, because if you're leading, you're actually playing good. And so it's one of those things. But then all of a sudden, not knowing what I know now, knowing more about me and being more self-aware, I think, I would tackle that differently. And it probably hurt me a little bit, being a little bit too defensive when really I should have kept to the plan and stuck to my guns, because I was obviously playing well. So yeah, I would say I'm always probably a little bit sensitive to threat, even in life in general. I'm definitely not one of those that craves the reward. I don't see the trophy at the end. I just think, oh, well, maybe something could go wrong there, and let's calculate that and let's kind of, take care of that just in case that would happen. So yeah, I think that's me definitely. And I've been fortunate that the past year or so with my role within Leadbetter and educating all of our other coaches, I have had the ability to do a little bit more exploration into self-awareness and my own personality, and just learn a little bit more about where I lean towards and what's natural for me. As much as we all know that people do change based on the context of the situation, but yeah, I think in a nutshell, definitely quite cautious from a playing standpoint.
Well, we always talk about, in my world, in the world of psychology, about personality characteristics. In the old days, we didn't really talk about the personality traits as much as we said this golfer has a great temperament. This golfer has a great carriage. He has a great deportment. He has a great, swagger. He has a style about him. And let's be quite frank with all of our viewers here right at the very start. I mean, golf is the greatest game, but it is a brutal game. It is a game that shows no favors to anyone, and it doesn't matter how good you are, how talented, how rich, how poor, whatever. Golf does not discriminate. So when I always talk to people about getting your mind in the right place, that's really where it has to be, because action follows thought. And if you want to become a great player, I mean, at any level, I don't care if you're a junior golfer, college golfer, just a recreational golfer, want to play well at your club, or just you love to go out and see how well you can compete against yourself. Because golf, it takes no prisoners, and it really takes an emotional toll. And I think the biggest lie that I think is perpetuated on TV and the media talks about the greatest players in the world. And these guys are always super composed, super confident. Nothing ever bothers them. Well, let's just, break this out in the open. Nothing, absolutely nothing could be further from the truth. I remember Tom Watson saying one time, he asked, Ben Hogan, he goes, Ben, he goes, when you were under pressure, he goes, what did it really feel like? How did you handle it? And Ben Hogan looked, he said, Tom, he goes, I was nervous. I was ready to jump out of my shoes almost every time. And Tom said, it didn't look like it. He goes, well, appearances can be deceiving. And I think really when we start talking about the amateurs and the professionals, I mean, being a professional player, being a professional tour player, that is vocational choice. And the old saying was, amateurs practice long and hard so they can get something right. Professionals practice long and hard so they don't get it wrong. And there was a wonderful LPGA player many years ago, Kelly Robbins, who, and I loved this thing, it's something I have used for the last 10, 15, 20 years. She said, the reason that we practice so hard in these prep rounds and practice and preparing for the tournaments, so that when it does come down to a tournament, we get into a tough situation, we can handle this situation nicely. I love that, because what she's talking about is the elements of being composed, being focused, and being immersed in the moment. And so that's really where I want to talk about, because tournament golf and developing this tournament mindset, and this is sort of a prelude to our Creating Golf Confidence platform for Leadbetter University that you and I, JJ, are working on. One of the things I really want to help people with is when you go out and go play, you have to ask yourself, really, what is it that you're expecting out of this round? What is it that you really want? Because a lot of times what we expect and what we get are two different things. And we have sort of this unhappiness gap, that we've talked about before. So how can we actually sort of bridge that gap a little bit? But for me, the tournament mindset that most people need to have is one that's more of what I call a proactive or proclaiming mindset. And I want to talk about the other mindset. And I always talk about, in my world, the 99 percenters versus the 1%ers. The 1%ers are the people that take control, that they create a cause and effect. They are in control of the situation. They're playing their game. They don't care about anybody else. Now, the 99 percenters, they have what we call is a questioning mindset. Now, that questioning mindset is filled with a lot of doubt. And make no question, doubt is your #1 performance distractor. It's the #1 interference. You could talk about fear, worry, and all that, but it's just doubt. And if you can doubt yourself and have a situation create doubt within your mind, then your mind starts taking you someplace where you don't want to go. But the questioning mindset that most people ask when you come off the golf course, what did you shoot? For these 99%ers, and this is the game that everybody's playing all around the world, and I'm trying to help them understand you've been playing the wrong game. They ask themselves, I wonder what I'll do today. And they ask themselves other questions. Will I play well today? When will I play well? Why is this happening to me? Will the people I'm playing with, will they feel comfortable with me? Will I be able to meet their standards of approval? Are they judging me? Who am I playing with? And then, what is it that they have that I don't have? Why is this stuff happening to me? So you see, there is just a cornucopia of different doubt questions that go on in our minds even before we put that peg in the ground. And that's one of the things that we have to understand. That questioning mindset is a reactive mindset. It's always reacting to things that have happened in the past, or we're reacting to something that we fear might happen in the future. We're not in the present moment. We're not immersed in what is. And this is a big part of my discussion here today is, are you taking care of this? And this is what you have. It is this moment. It is this shot. It is right now, because that's the only thing you have control of. And what happens to people when they get into a tournament situation, because there are consequences, because you have to write down a score, because there is an outcome measure, a lot of people feel this threat, and it's an ego threat. And it's something that says, I fear the failing. I fear the embarrassment. My pride is holding me back. I mean, there's just a lot of different things we can talk about. But that's really the two different mindsets. You have a very reactive mindset. It's reacting to things that have happened or fear that they might happen, versus a proactive mindset. I don't mean pro as in professional. I mean pro in that I initiate the action. I control myself and the conditions. Here's what I want to do. So golf, in the highest form, is really a cause-effect mechanism. I create this to happen. And if I created that to happen and I knew my mind was in a good place, I can live with the results. I can accept the results. But the reactors, the questioning mindset, they're always going, why is this happening to me? And the proactive people are thinking why in a different way. They're going, why not me? Why not? If this person can do it, that person can do it, why not me? And that's sort of the motivation. That's a stepping stone to personal golfing greatness. It's like, hey, this is my time. It's my ball, and I'm going to play the way I want to. And with that type of a mindset, that proactive mindset, it creates something that I've been talking about for years, which I think is absolutely the basis of all golf philosophy. And it is, I have emotional freedom. I have the freedom to just play the way I want to play without the hindrances, without the burdens of other people's expectations, or even my own self-imposed expectations. Because when I feel carefree, I care about the game, I care about my score, but I'm free to play the way I want to. Because when we have this other mindset, people are either careless, and they could care less, and they make a lot of sloppy mistakes, or they're careful. And I think most people are so full of care. They want it so much, they're trying so hard that they constrict and they sabotage their own talent and own potentiality.
Yeah, I would say you look at the word careful, and with my characteristics going back to my younger playing days, I think it was I had high expectations, probably a little bit out of whack with where my game really was. So I wasn't being honest with myself. I maybe didn't have great self-awareness at that point, but then I would become very careful and almost try too hard, get in my own way. And I think a lot of the time for me, I've always been a little bit of a perfectionist as well, and always trying to put the next step forward has to be a perfect step, and not really just realizing it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be my best effort, my best next step each time, and learn from your failings. Each time you fail, it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And I think for me is with that, like you say, when you have that carefree ability, then you can become a little bit more like a habitual action taker, where you're always taking a little bit of action every day, constantly. You're moving forwards, but you're doing it in a way that's very constructive. And I play much better golf now. Now, naturally, I've got better awareness of my technique. I'm better technically than I was. I know more about the game, so there's the experience side of it. But I really put it more down to the fact that my expectations of myself when I go out and play, even in a competitive environment, I'm much more that recreational player, where I'm going out and I'm not worrying about what are they going to do today, what are they going to think of me, or wonder what they shoot, or what will be the lowest score today. Well, I just need to worry about me and worry about one shot at a time, So I think for me, that maturity and those learnings, I wish that in my coaching back when I was a young kid, I'd had a little bit better guidance to help me understand more about this and help me figure it out for myself and take ownership of it, as we all need to as players. But you look back at coaching, even when I was a kid, that we talked a little bit, or you talked a little bit there before, about creating kind of performance practice, and like you said about the LPGA players saying, we train hard like this so we're prepared and we're ready when the tough times come. A lot of the times when I was a kid, I never trained like that. I never practiced in that pressure environment. So when the pressure environment popped up, I didn't know how to deal with it. And it's like, and that was no wonder, because I'd never trained. And I think coaching's got a lot better. And thanks to the likes of people like you that have educated hundreds of coaches around the world of strategies to try and help their students in this and develop a tournament mindset like we're talking about today, I think we can better prepare players to really go out there and achieve their excellence.
Well, I think the old Austrian adage was, the life so short, the craft so long to learn. And Mike Tyson, the professional boxer, said, too soon old, too late smart, right? So we always say, boy, I wish I knew then what I know now. And that's really what we're trying to help people. We're trying to expedite their learning curve so they don't have to make years and decades of trial and error to understand what it means to really play, with this emotional freedom. And that's really, what it is all about. And if we think about that, you're talking about playing your very best golf and being honest with yourself. Years ago, I was one of the mental game advisors for Jack Nicklaus and his Golden Bear Tour here in Southern Florida. And I remember Jack, talking about, a lot of these things about being honest with yourself, honest assessment, really playing your game. And I remember asking him, I said, you've always been such a great closer in these tournaments. And this is the greatest golfers ever lived. I mean, I'm putting Tiger right up there with Jack. But Jack said, well, Bob, he goes, the one thing, that I've done is that I've realized that I didn't have to have my A game. He goes, and there's been so many times, he goes, I got more out of winning when I didn't have my best stuff than when everything was going on. He goes, I think I got more satisfaction out of that. He says, call it pride or whatever. But I think Jack is like everybody else. And I always work on the human being model. Everyone is different. Even talking, this with Arnold, I asked Arnold, I said, when you play in all these different tournaments, I said, how many tournaments do you think that you won? And how many tournaments do you think that you kind of gave away? And he looked at me and he smiled and goes, oh, I've given a lot away. He goes, but that was my style. I was a go for broke type person. That's the way I was brought up. That was my philosophy. So for me, when we start talking about developing this tournament mindset, it's about developing a personal playing philosophy that works for you. So when you go play, this is what I know is right for me. So you have to be honest in yourself. And we're talking about being honest when we have all these handicap systems. We have the handicap system here in America, you have it in the UK, and we were talking a little bit earlier that there's been some research now that they've actually tracked, thousands of golfers in the United Kingdom, and you guys have a very stringent handicap system,
Mhm.
and almost to a person that everyone who actually played over in UK, I mean, it was a significant difference between what their handicaps were and really what their return scores were in these big established tournaments. It was anywhere from 7 to 10 strokes higher. And what does that mean? That means all of us, we have something called, this cognitive bias. We tend to overestimate our abilities far superior than what they really are. We think we're really better than what we really are. And that's why when people say, wow, I shot a 75 today, that's my best. They look at that as that's their standard versus no, this is your standard. This was your best ever score. But we have this, and it's something that we call sort of this selective bias, illusory superiority mindset. And it also comes from the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect means that we overestimate ourselves. We think we have far more ability than we really show. And so that's what human beings do. And then when we go out and we go play and we return a score much higher, that's a blow to our ego. And we're going, wow. So I know a lot of people don't like to play in handicap events because when they get paired up with other people who have handicaps, they're upset because that person didn't play to their established handicap. In fact, they returned a score so much higher. And where does that come from? It comes from the fear of consequences, the fears of embarrassment. Perhaps maybe even they're not being honest and being realistic in their recreational or their performance rounds, prep rounds, and they're maybe taking that 3-footer. They're not really putting everything out. They may be dropping down the second ball. So when we start talking about recreational golf, enjoyment golf versus tournament golf, where every shot counts and you've got to be able to sign for it, there's a notion of accountability. And the word count is in the middle of that accountability and responsibility word. So I think when Nicholas talks about that, I've heard this from so many different players. I remember David Duval, who had a chance to win 4 or 5 majors, and he ends up winning the Open. And he's very, self-reflective. He goes, I wasn't even playing anywhere my best. And I'm in my hotel room, I'm looking at the claret jug, and he's sitting there going, wow, is this it? I mean, I didn't even play that well. What's that all about? And I think that's really what a lot of people have a misperception about, is that in order for me to play my best golf, it's about me striking the ball absolutely perfect. And it's not about managing your mind, managing your ball. And that's really what developing a tournament mindset, a tournament mentality is all about. It's about getting the very best out of your mind, your body, your emotions that you possibly can. Because in my book, 5 is less than 6, 4 is less than 5, and I'm trying to make the smallest number I possibly can, one shot at a time.
No, absolutely. And you talk about there and the being honest with yourself, or the expectations that players have of themselves, or that the expectations that are put on them as well. And we all know that parents only want the best for their children when they're golfing. But I worked out in Florida for 5.5 years, and I've seen quite a high pressure environment around, a lot of expectation being placed on young golfers to get to a D1 college, to maybe make it as a pro. And unfortunately, then you've seen at times, and unfortunate for me, times where I've seen young players start to cheat just to be able to break 80, so that the phone call home is not a disastrous phone call home. And you just look and you go, there's something fundamentally wrong here. And as a coach, that was something you have to address and you have to kind of deal with. But I think, getting everybody on the same page at the start to develop, and I think what you said is so important there, that individual tournament mindset or routine, because I'm very different to you. You'd be very different to another player. Like you said there, Arnie was very much go-getting and aggressive. You look at somebody that would maybe plot the way around the golf course a bit more and do it more through what they feel comfortable with. And I think that's what a coach, especially for us as coaches, you need to really understand your students and the people you're working with, because if you don't understand them and how they get the best out of themselves, you're really not doing them the best service you can. So, in terms of tournament golf, what would you say is the most important thing for you, Dr. Bob, about tournament golf?
That's a fantastic question. The most important thing about playing tournament golf is getting yourself into a mindset that isn't so much about how everything looks, how everything feels, because your task, and this is, absolute gospel, your task is to move your golf ball from point A to point B to point C in the most efficient, effective, and economical manner possible. End of story. That's all that really matters. It doesn't matter really what other people think about what you did. It doesn't matter how it looks. It doesn't even matter really how you feel about it, because once a shot is hit, you have to go into this acceptance mode. I mean, because the shot has already been hit and it's history. It's a done deal. You can't get that back. And I think this is such a big thing. I hear this from players all the time. They're playing with another player and they're looking at this player and they're judging their shots. They're hitting every shot down the middle, hitting every shot onto the green. And I just know, because I was working with, a women's college team, for many years. And a few years ago, there was a competitor on another team, and they used to call it, let's say her name's Rhonda. That's her fictitious name. It was a Rhonda par. Well, Rhonda would hit it off the tee, maybe 225 yards left. And Rhonda would hit maybe a hybrid up by the green. And then Rhonda would actually chip the ball up 2 feet from the hole and make a Rhonda par. And what was happening is some of the girls were getting really frustrated by playing with this type of player. And they're going, she's not even that good. She doesn't even hit it that well. I don't know how many greens she had. And I'm happy to sit there and talk with these, young ladies. And that happens on the men's, it happens, everywhere. And I look at them and I go, now, hang on, what did you fire today? What was your score? And they go, I shot 77. And what did Rhonda shoot? 72. They go, I just can't get it. I said, here's the point. Rhonda has a mindset that when she goes out, she's playing Rhonda golf. She doesn't care what you think about her game. She doesn't care, because she's playing her game one shot at a time. And she's not, oh, am I meeting your evaluations? Am I meeting your judgments? You're not the judge, jury, and executioner of me. I mean, she's playing for me. And so we always talk about this mindset. It's you versus you, the battle for your mind. No, golf should be you for you. It should be you giving yourself the stuff that you need. I mean, Tiger, Jack, Annika, they've all said, what are some great ingredients, to become a great, tournament player? One is the ability to have composure. And composure means the ability to just get yourself feeling comfortable. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because everybody wants to feel a little bit more comfortable. Everybody's got sort of this pre-round nerves, this anxiety, anticipatory anxiety. But composure is the ability to be cool, calm, and collected, or at least, go through, these motions that allow you to say, this is what I do. This is what, this is my domain. This is what I'm in control of. So when we start talking about getting into the zone, it's not a zone of peak performance per se. It's a zone of perceptions of control. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And that gives me comfort. All right. That's my security blanket. When a little baby cries, you give them their bottle, you give them their security blanket, and goo, everything's good. That's really what sort of composure gives you. And that comes from a variety of different things. Another thing, they talk about is the ability to focus. Even Jack Nicklaus says, I don't try to focus. If you have to try to focus, you're not really focused. So really focus for me is being immersed, being absorbed in what you're doing. Because when you get yourself absorbed, people say you get lost in the moment. Well, you become engaged with the moment. That's really what engagement is. In relationships, when you see two people falling in love with each other, they are totally absorbed. Nothing else exists but that. And so when you're really absorbed in golf, you are absorbed in the moment. you are engaged, visually, kinesthetically to your target. This is what I want to do. You're totally absorbed in the moment. So you have the composure. You're totally absorbed in the moment. Then you have something that Nicholas said, well, it's a sort of self-centeredness. You don't really worry about anybody. In fact, you don't even care about anybody. So everyone else doesn't become a distraction. They're just not even there. So all that exists is about you, your ball, and the target. And I've worked with, tens of thousands of people now over the years to say, hey, this is what I need to do. It's about you, your ball, and your target. And a lot of people go, isn't that kind of selfish? It's not a selfish mindset. It's a self-full mindset. You're full of yourself, giving yourself the stuff that you need in order for you to go out and play your very best golf. And it isn't based on the judgments or evaluations of others. And finally, you give yourself the permission, hey, this is all I've got, and this is what I'm going to do, and let's go play. I mean, those four things right there are just key ingredients. And so we always hear people say, well, how do I get comfortable? How do I get comfortable? I just don't feel comfortable. Well, we say you have to learn how, to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. So we always say composure via repeated exposure. And in tournament golf, there's no substitute for tournament competition. There's just none. You can practice, do all the drills that you want, but until you really get yourself, and you put your, feet to the fire, and that's really what the fire does. When we start talking about fire, it burns away the impurities. And if we're talking about a gemstone and you have pressure and you have fire, so it takes a piece of coal and that pressure and as much fire as heat you put on it, what turns out after a while turns out to be a diamond. And so when I tell people, I'm not really comfortable with competition, I always say there's a couple of things. You either, love competition, or you learn to love competition, or you learn to adapt and manage yourself with the competition. And I think even for me as a player, as a coach, is that, I was never one of these guys, well, I really want to go in and win this tournament. Yes, I wanted to win, but it wasn't just winning the trophy. It was about putting in the very best effort that I could put in. And so winning for me wasn't winning the trophy. It was about winning and winning the effort award. I remember that Jim Flick, the late Jim Flick, said, there's a couple of championships you need to win before you tee it up in a competition. And I thought it was just genius. He said, you can win the attitude award, that no one in this tournament, no one in this scoring competition is going to have a better attitude than me. I'm going to have a great attitude. Bad things happen. Hey, I'm going to put it behind me, move forward. I'm just going to keep moving forward. I'm going to have a great attitude. He said, because your attitude determines your altitude. How high you want to go in this game is based on your attitude. And the second, award that you need to win is the competitor award. And you got to say, no one in this field is going to be a better, more grinding, ferocious, relentless competitor than me. And I think, just going in there and just having that attitude, that mindset that says, this is who I am. And I help players sort of develop that. That's really what I do. Because a lot of people go, gee, I'm not really one of these, get them in there and mix them up and get dirty with this type of person. I'm not that person. I'm more sort of laid back. I'm going, well, tell me what really drives your passion. They go, I really like to hit shots. I said, well, you're right there with Bobby Jones. Because Bobby Jones says, it isn't so much about the score of beating other people. For me, it was getting involved with hitting the stroke. And I thought, that was a great mindset. Because he was talking again about the mastery aspect of the game. Really, how good will I allow Bobby Jones to be? All right. And that's why each one of us, really is going out to play. How well and how good can I play today? And here's the point I'm always asking people. If you knew everything was going to work out, if you knew you were going to have the very best day, and everything was going to turn out in the end, how would you allow, your day to go right from the very get-go? They go, well, I'd be cool, calm, and collected, and I'd, give myself the freedom to go out and have a lot of fun. I go, well, let's start with that. Let's start with that. Because see, when we get into tournaments, here's the problem. 2 or 3 days before the tournament, everybody's playing well. Woohoo, this is great. I wish the tournament was today. And as we get closer to the tournament, and we get closer to sort of this, you hear the drums and tournament, people start to, I want it. I'm really trying really hard. And it should be just the opposite. And that's really what the great players do. The great players, the great tournament players, the closer it gets to the tournament, what they're doing is they're freeing it up. They're sort of loosening up more. They're actually saying, I've got it. I'm ready to go. And we always talk about training and trusting, Stuart. I want to kind of talk about this. I've never seen anybody on the range, okay, at the Leadbetter World Teaching Headquarters where I'm at, or any place else. I've never seen anyone really right before a major tournament or anything with their feet up and their heads behind their back and going, what are you doing? I'm trusting. I'm trusting. I've got it. I don't have to practice anymore. I've got it. And that's just a great way to think, because when you know you have it, you don't have to train. You don't have to practice anymore. Now you've done everything you possibly could. So when you get to the first tee, you're ready to go. So the point is, as we're training, we should be trusted. And so when we get to the first tee to play, we're ready to go. But that's the whole point. The great players, when they get closer to the first tee, yes, they're nervous, but they're excited to play. They aren't fearing, oh, bad things are going to happen. Whereas the rest of the world is getting tighter and they're more fearful, having more expectations. So we've got to help people kind of get more freedom and more permissiveness to go out and let's just play golf instead of playing the game of how am I doing? What's my score? Am I winning? No, let's just get into playing the game of golf one shot at a time.
I mean, you just said it, one shot at a time, and as usual, the golden nuggets there are flying for everybody that's listening about how to develop and feel prepared, ready to start the tournament. Now, once you're in a tournament and you may be in a position to close things out, and what would you say coming down that stretch, the final few holes of a tournament? What's kind of your main concern, and what is it that you would kind of recommend to say that, listen, this is how you're going to close things out and you're going to finish well for people? Because that's a time where I think that people can lose that state of feeling as if they're prepared, and really from there make sure that that they get back into that state that they've been in, because that's a time when people can become very tight, tense, and get in their own way. So what would you say?
Well, that's the first thing. I mean, what's the main issue here? Let's say you're on the 16th tee, and between the 15th green and the 16th tee, you take a look at the leaderboard, you see you're in the lead, or you have other people in your group going, wow, Bob, Stuart, you're playing great. Keep it going. Keep it going. And that's all we gotta say. Wow, I hope I can keep it going, right? And the point of it is, by the time we get to the 16th tee, we sort of change our mindset. We change our whole process. And I've talked a lot, about in years past, it's sort of like ice cream. It's like I've been playing chocolate all day long, and I've been doing it one lick at a time, one shot at a time. Mm-hmm. By the time I get, to the 16th tee, oh, I really want to help it along now. So I change from just basic chocolate. So now I go to mint chocolate chip. All right. I'm thinking something totally different. And instead of actually knowing all day long, I've been working. So that's the first thing you need to understand is what you've been doing all day long is confirmation that you are playing great golf. And that's the first thing you just need before you actually, and when someone sort of takes you out of that bubble, they make you aware of your awareness, because all day long you've probably just been target aware, shot aware. You just been in the moment, one after one after one until I'm done. Now someone sort of pulls you out, or you pull yourself out of that, you have to be able to sort of jump back in and be doing the same thing that you've always been doing. So we always talk about KISS over the years. For many people out there, you know what that means. It means keep it simple, stupid. But we don't work with stupid people, okay? I think golfers are genius. So we talk about keeping it simple and specific. But in this day here for you, Stuart, coming down the stretch, all day long, say you've been doing chocolate, and chocolate was your process. I want to use this as, you know, the metaphor. Chocolate is your process. One shot, one lick at a time, all day long. Now, when you get to the 16th tee, KISS, keep it the same scoop. It's still chocolate. It's not mint chocolate chip. It's not raspberry sorbet. It's not butter pecan. Don't change. You have to have the confirmation and validation that what you've been doing all day is working. Why change a winning game plan? And that's what Lou Holtz said. You know, in order to win, how do you win? Well, the word win is an acronym for what's important now. And that's always the power of the now. So we're getting ourselves back into this chocolate moment. And so now we're stepping on the 16th tee, because here's the situation. Here's what I want everyone. If you don't get anything else out of this webinar, I want you to hear me now and listen to me later. Is that there is no scorer's tent, you know, behind the 15th green or the 17th green. It's not over till it's over. You have to play one shot, one after one, until you are done. Then you have completed your round, and then you have to, you know, complete your score, double check it, sign it, and then move in. I mean, that's your task as a player. And we started talking, what is your task as a player? To move your ball from point A to point B to point C. And I think what happens for so many people, that they actually start projecting, they start getting into the future. And I've always had this saying, is that a thought about golf and winning. If you're over a shot and you're thinking about winning, you're thinking about the outcome, you're thinking about the results, that shot, you know, will be squandered, and winning and everything that you want will never be realized. However, if you're over that same shot and totally focus into executing that shot at that particular moment, winning and all the outcomes will come to you. And so that's really, you know, what I would say to you. You've got to have that confirmation that what I've been doing is working. Continue the process. And that's, a lot of people go, well, how do I do that? I mean, are there any physical tools, any cognitive behavior devices? Well, I have one right here that I've always had. It's just, you know, snapping yourself a little bit and snapping it and go, hey, come on now. You know, we're not done here. We still got more work to play. Let's go. Or taking a mental timeout, taking your hat off, you know, just kind of, you know, taking a deep breath. Even on the bill of a hat, you can take it and you can just say, refocus, reset. I mean, just anything. I've had a lot of players over the years, you'll see them take a hat off on TV and they'll be looking at it and you think, you know, they're kind of wiping their butt, but they're looking, there's like a message in there. And that message means it's a reset, it's an anchor. Okay, then you put it back on. All right, time in, shot on, let's go. So those are just a couple of little reboots, resets to get you into your process. But that's really what, you know, coming down the stretch is all about. It's about continuing to do the good stuff one after one, because you have nothing other than the confirmation that what you've been doing all day has been working.
Yeah, got a great question come in, obviously focused a little bit more at young junior golfers, a little bit around the tournament mindset here is from Anthony Hall. He's asked, do you have any extra advice for the tournament mindset for younger or junior golfers, and also how to make their practice support developing this tournament mindset?
Yeah, that's a great one, Anthony. That's a great question. Well, you know, it doesn't really have to be, you know, for young golfers or old golfers. It works the same for everyone. What you really want to do is you need to go out before you go play, and you need to have maybe 10 to 12 balls before you go out to go play. And you need to actually go through a series of different clubs, but go through your routine, and go to different targets. But here's the kicker. You want to actually give your full intention and sense of purpose into each one of these shots. You want to make it as the best that you possibly can. This is my best intention, my best effort. And then after hitting the shot, learning to accept it. Really having a little downtime, because for a young player, old player, in between player, what is it about golf that really just takes us down? Is that we get angry and we become reactive at the results. You have to learn to accept. And then acceptance doesn't mean you go, okay, I missed a shot. You don't have to like a shot to accept it, but you do have to realize it is what it is. Acceptance is the first part. Then we have to be able to release it, all right? And I have, sort of this tissue right here. So when we start playing one shot at a time, I have this one tissue right here. I've hit this shot, all right? I've used it. Now, I can't hang on to this shot. I've got to be able to let it go. Now I come to the next shot, all right? And it's one after one after one until I'm done. So with these 10 to 12 balls, what you're doing, you might be hitting a driver to the left side of the fairway. Then maybe take a 5-iron and hit it out to the right. But what you'll find after these 10 to 12, each one of them is a self-contained moment. That transfers directly to helping you play one shot at a time when you get to the golf course. So now it isn't about, oh, I need to make par, or I need to make birdie, or I have to salvage a bogey. It's really looking at the value of this one shot. And that's really, for a young player, middle-aged player, older player, that is the most important thing. I have players now who are on the tour who we've been working together now for almost 20 years. I have, a couple of them out there. Point being is, they always come back to me, Doc, the things that we worked on the very first day. I'm still working on those things, but I'm taking more ownership of that. Yeah. So I'm owning it. I'm making it my own. And it's like, I guess it's like sharing recipes, with cooking things. You have all these great, chefs, and they're cooking, and they may be cooking the same thing, but they put their little extra special sauce on it. And that's exactly really what I'm trying to help, players to do. So Anthony, if you do that, I think that will transfer into your overall tournament mindset as well. Yes.
Another question based around junior golfers as well from Joe Phillip. His question is, what advice would you give to parents enrolling their child in tournaments from a young age, both for the parent and the child, in their view of entering, and what the expectation should be?
Well, I think, Joel, that's a great question. Getting your son or daughter, in a golf tournament is sort of a kind of a neat thing. It's a great thing. You don't really want to put them in, the deep water too soon. You want to sort of just kind of, introduce them, slowly. But as a parent, even before the tournament, on the ride to the tournament, give them a chance, to talk, listen to really what they're saying, reassure them that everything's going to work out, and reaffirm that they have practice and that everything's going to work out. But the great thing, I think, Joel, is that for all parents, is that you are there. They see that, all right? And the other thing for a parent is that you are a role model, and they're going to actually take your cues from what they see from the sidelines. So I think always be optimistic, always be supportive, and you can never do this enough. You can never do this enough, because when a parent, when a young player sees their parent, and they see this, they feel as if they've let them down. And for so many young players, they carry this huge weight, this burden of, I'm not even just playing for me, I'm trying to play to please my parents because I want them to love me. And I think sometimes we always tell our children, and I've had 2 boys of my own, and I've been with junior golfers for a long, long time, is that we say, we're so proud of you, you did great today. But I also want, parents to say, listen, I know it's tough out there, but you played like a champion, you had your head up, you gave your best today. So we reward the effort, And then we can actually look back at the round, when all the dust is settled, and then we can kind of talk with them and say, hey, what really went well for you out there today? That's the first thing I would do, instead of actually saying, what happened there on number 12? I mean, you're making a triple bogey on that hole. I mean, how the hell you do that? We don't really want that. We want, okay, what really went well? And then what could have, you've done better? Number 12, I saw you had a little hiccup right there. So it's always sort of, making sure that we're reassuring, making sure that they have a safe haven, a safe place. Tiger Woods became great because his parents, made it safe for him to be successful. It was also safe for him to fail. And they looked at the good and the indifferent and the bad, and they weighed it all out. And I think that's really what, made Tiger a very balanced player and made him very powerful and helped him win and be as successful as he is.
Yeah, no, fantastic advice. Now, I think, Joe, for you, on university.leadbetter.com, we've actually developed with our Leadbetter Kids program some free parent education there that really highlights exactly what Dr. Bob's talked about there, in terms of, really supporting your child, and it being less about the result or the outcome of the tournament, but understanding that it's a journey, there's a process, they're gaining experience, and you're supporting them and acknowledging their attitude, how good a competitor, their sportsmanship, the effort levels that they put in. And as long as they're doing that and learning and then still enjoying the game, because a young player is still at that stage where they maybe haven't fallen in love with the game like myself or the doc here. We've been fortunate to learn to like the game, and based on our experiences, the environment, the opportunities we've had, we've fallen in love with the game, and the game's got us hook, line, and sinker. A lot of kids, it's very easy to turn them away from the game, and you've got to, before things get a little bit more serious, I would always say you need to make sure that they've fallen in love with the game, because we then run the risk of them leaving the game too early. And the ultimate goal is we want people playing for their lifetime. So check out university.leadbetter.com. It's called The Parent Coach. And there's some information in there that I'm sure you'll enjoy. So, Doc, if we had to wrap things up in a few minutes and you had to give us kind of a summary of really the keys to developing a tournament mindset, how would you sum things up to give the viewers here a really constructive way to be able to head out to the golf course or the practice area tomorrow and put some things in practice?
I would, have each one of you write down 3 things. When you've played your very best golf, I mean, whether it's, by yourself, with friends, in tournaments, 3 things. What are these 3 things? What is it that you're thinking? What is it you're feeling? What is it that you're doing? And if you can actually identify those 3 things, continue, really build those. Those are your foundation building blocks, all right? And the next thing is to understand is stop the comparisons, of you versus other people. Compare yourself with what you believe your standard for excellence should be. That, to me, is huge. So you're not comparing yourself to other people. You're comparing yourself to your talent, to your potentiality, to your abilities, because we're always trying to get better. We're always improving. And we can always look at this, an armchair quarterback, say, well, I could have done better. I could have done better. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. But what I'm really looking for when you're playing in tournaments and you're really out there playing, are you giving your best? And are you enjoying giving it your best? And that's really what we got into the game in the first place. And I've always talked about fundamentals. The game starts with fun. Duh. And it's mental. Okay. So it's a fundamental. So those are the things. And I think you have to be honest with yourself and say, hey, listen, I don't hit it as far as some of my friends, but I am really competent and very, very good at building confidence in these other areas. And I'm actually getting longer, stronger, better in almost every area. But you have to be honest in your assessments. But those 3 things, really use that as a building block and then move forward in that direction. And I'll tell you what, and understand that it is a game. It's a brutal game, but it's a lovely game. And every now and then, what you want to do when things aren't going so well, you got to be able to take a look around and say, wow, this is really what it's all about. Golf is a game, and it's about me testing my competency in this environment we call a golf course. And if I can have a blast and really have fun, even when things are really going bad, then everything else is going to be gravy from this point forward. So that's really what I always tell people. I said, the more freedom, the more enjoyment that you can create for your game. It's funny how good scores, good results, and more smiles start to follow.
No, brilliant. And as always, I know one of your mottos is change your mind, change your game. So, I think
Right.
the guys there, and I've scribbled so many notes while we've been here. I always learn so much from spending time with you. I think this is our third or fourth time over the past couple of months chatting about various topics. On behalf of Leadbetter Golf, Doc, we're always so grateful for you to share your time, share your knowledge, your passion. I think anybody that's watching picks up on the care and the passion and the dedication that you have to the game. I'm always extremely grateful to get a couple of nuggets along the way and improve my coaching. For all of you that are watching, don't forget this video will be live in about 24 hours time on our YouTube channel, Leadbetter Golf Academy. So you'll be able to go back through it and take the information in a little bit more at your own pace as well. We hope you've enjoyed watching us. We hope that you all stay safe out there, and we can't wait to see your golf get to the next level. Doc, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thanks everybody. Think good thoughts. Thanks, Stuart. See you soon.
Take care. Speak soon.